I always thought my life was ordinary, until the day my parents told me, "Sarah, you don't need all that fuss," right after they gave my sister Emily the biggest, most glamorous wedding you could imagine. At first, I thought that moment would just be a small disappointment. Little did I know it was the start of the worst day of my life, and then it got even worse, much worse. Ever since I was a little kid, it felt like the sun rose and set on my sister Emily. She's a year older than me, but even from the start, she seemed to shine brighter in my parents' eyes. If there was an extra toy, Emily got it. If there was a special treat, Emily tasted it first. When it was time for birthdays, Emily's parties were full of balloons, ponies, and glitter. Mine, a simple dinner at home with a small cake. I tried not to complain. I kept telling myself I was just a quieter person, more low-key. "You're so independent, Sarah," Mom would say, smiling in a way that told me she believed I didn't need much attention. Dad would pat my shoulder and add, "Yes, Emily is the one who needs us more. You're our responsible girl." Those words seemed like compliments at first, but over time it started to sting. You see, Dad always said Emily deserved the best. He said it so often that the phrase sank into my head and played on repeat. Emily deserves the best. On top of that, Mom once told me, "Sarah, you're the easier daughter. Emily's so sensitive." And with that, I was quietly placed in the shadows while Emily grabbed the spotlight again and again. When Emily got engaged to her fiancé, an ambitious, successful guy, Mom and Dad practically threw confetti the moment he popped the question. They started planning Emily's wedding before the ring was even resized. I'm talking about a fancy venue that cost more than a year's rent in some cities, a designer dress from out of state, full catering with 3 different menus to satisfy everyone's tastes, live music, dancing fountains, yes, dancing fountains, plus a professional photographer who flew in just for her. It was huge. Giant flower arches, crystal chandeliers, the works. If you didn't know my family, you would think we were millionaires. The theme was basically a princess fairy tale come to life, and Mom kept saying, "Emily has always dreamed of this. She deserves it." It was a strange feeling for me. I was genuinely happy for my sister. We might not be best friends, but she was my family. Yet with every new detail, every update about the 6-tier cake or the fireworks show, I felt this dull ache in my chest. Every time Emily's name was spoken, I sank a little deeper into my own quiet corner. While Emily's wedding was in full-on royal event mode, my boyfriend Mark and I decided to get married too. But we wanted something simpler. We planned a small ceremony at the courthouse because it felt more like us. We aren't flashy people. We enjoy calm weekend hikes, cozy nights, watching movies, and above all, we cherish the quiet moments we share. When I told my parents about our plan, Mom's reaction was startling. She practically sneered, "A courthouse? You don't need all that fuss, Sarah." Dad nodded in agreement. That same night, they took Emily out to celebrate yet another milestone in her wedding planning. I tried to brush it off, but deep inside, I was torn up. It was so unfair. How did my wedding become a casual side note while Emily's was the event of the century? I kept my cool though, telling myself, "It's just one day, Sarah, let it go." Still, the actual day of my wedding was meant to be special to me. Mark and I were so excited to say our vows. We arrived at the courthouse, hearts pounding, ready to seal our love in our own simple way. My parents came, yes, but the difference in their behavior was glaring. They didn't bring a single flower. They didn't even smile much. Mom kept checking her phone, showing pictures of Emily's dress to everyone who would look. I wanted to cry, but I held it together. I told myself, focus on Mark, focus on what really matters. We said our vows, and it was so genuine, so sweet. For that one moment, I felt truly loved, no matter how my parents acted. But that was also the day everything took a scary turn. The day that felt like the worst of my life, until it got even worse. After the brief courthouse ceremony, we went to our favorite local diner. It's not fancy, just a place with good burgers and warm milkshakes. My dad was yawning. My mom kept scrolling on her phone. Then, in the middle of dinner, she blurted out, "Emily's next wedding fitting is next week in New York. It's going to be huge. We're buying her this special veil." I stared at my burger. Something inside me broke. I felt tears sting my eyes, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I stood up, heart racing, and said, "Are you guys even happy I got married today?" They both froze. Mom looked offended. "Sarah," she said in a tight voice, "you're just not the big wedding type. I assumed you were happy with your small ceremony." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. Mark took my hand to calm me down, but I pulled away. All I could say was, "I'm done." "What do you mean?" Dad asked, looking confused. "I mean, I'm done pretending that I'm okay with always being second place," I said. My voice shook. "You spent your whole year giving Emily a fairy tale wedding, but for me, you said I don't need that fuss, as if I'm less deserving of celebration." For a moment, nobody spoke. Other customers were staring. My face was hot with embarrassment, but also relief. Finally, I was telling them how I felt. I grabbed my purse, paid for our meal, and walked out with Mark trailing behind me. But that night, I found out that was just the start of my nightmare. Because when I got home, there was a missed call from my aunt, my dad's sister. She left me a voicemail saying, "Sarah, I know you're hurting. There's something you need to know about this family. Call me when you can." My aunt and I didn't talk much. She lived in another state and rarely visited. Curious and nervous, I called her right back. Her voice was shaky when she answered. She asked how the wedding went. I gave her a short summary. Basically, my parents didn't care. I stormed out. She hesitated, then sighed. "Sarah," she said gently, "I've kept a secret for years. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but now I see how unhappy you are. It's time you know." My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear her. "What do you mean?" "There was an inheritance," she began. "Your grandmother left a large amount of money for both you and Emily. It was supposed to be split evenly so each of you could do something special with it, like pay for a wedding or buy a first home. Your mom and dad took that money years ago. They used it for Emily, her college, her wedding, everything." I nearly dropped the phone. My legs started trembling, so I sat down on the couch. Mark looked at me, worried, but I couldn't speak. Auntie continued. "They told me not to say a word. They said it was for the best. They said Emily deserved it more because she had bigger dreams, and you were always happy with less." "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I realized this was wrong, but they convinced me to stay out of it." My hands shook. I felt a wave of anger, confusion, and sadness. Suddenly, everything made sense. All these years of hearing Emily deserves the best wasn't just about attention. It was about actual money and opportunities that were silently stolen from me. I hung up the phone, numb. Mark sat next to me, holding my hand. I buried my face in his shoulder, tears burning my eyes. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would they do that?" We sat there for a long time, no words, just the raw sting of betrayal. The next day, I woke up feeling hollow. My mind swirled with thoughts of that hidden inheritance. My entire childhood replayed in my head. The times I wore secondhand clothes while Emily got brand new outfits. The days I wanted to join a dance class, but Mom said, "It's too expensive," while Emily was sent to an elite ballet school. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. That afternoon, Mom and Dad came by. They acted like nothing big had happened, talking about some errands they ran. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. "I know about Grandma's inheritance," I said, my voice shaking. "Auntie told me everything." I expected them to deny it, to call me mistaken, but the look on Dad's face told me I had hit the truth. Mom swallowed hard, her eyes darting around. "Sarah, we only did what we thought was right," she said in a small, trembling voice. "Emily had bigger goals, more needs. You're so practical and easygoing. We never imagined you'd even want that money." My anger flared. "You never imagined? You never asked what I wanted. You decided it for me. All these years I thought I just wasn't worth the fuss. You took my chance to feel special, just like Emily." Dad stepped in. "Don't turn this into a fight, Sarah. We love you just as much, but you never asked for expensive things or big celebrations. You seemed fine." "I seemed fine because you taught me to expect less," I snapped. "You told me my dreams didn't matter, and now I see it was more than just words. You literally stole from me." Silence. The room felt cold and tense. Mom's lip quivered. "We're sorry," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "We thought we were helping Emily get her dream life. You always looked so independent, so strong." My heart pounded in my ears. Part of me wanted to scream at them. Another part wanted to burst into tears. I felt like a tornado was ripping through my chest. Finally, Mark wrapped an arm around me and said, "Sarah needs time. This is a huge betrayal." Dad nodded sadly. "We understand. We do. We'll give you space." They left quietly. Mom tried to hug me on the way out, but I couldn't lift my arms. I felt frozen. For days, I ignored their calls and texts. My aunt texted me again, apologizing for not speaking up sooner. Emily tried to call too, but I sent her to voicemail. Mark made me hot tea, turned on my favorite music, and let me cry in peace. During one of those silent afternoons, I thought about my future. Did I really want to cut my parents out forever? It felt tempting. They had betrayed me so deeply. But a tiny voice inside whispered that maybe this was a chance to face the truth and start fresh, if that was even possible. I kept replaying the moment my mom said, "We only did what we thought was right." A part of me believed they didn't mean harm. They were blinded by their excitement for Emily, and they saw me as strong and low maintenance. But that didn't erase the pain they caused. It also didn't erase the fact they took what was meant for me behind my back. A week later, I agreed to meet my parents in a quiet park. No fancy restaurants, no dramatic scenes, just a small table under a big oak tree. Mark came with me for support, and Dad brought Mom, who looked pale and tired. As soon as we sat down, Mom reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't really hold her hand back either. My emotions were too raw. "Sarah," she started, voice shaky, "we know we messed up. We used the inheritance for Emily. It was a lot of money, and we never told you. We thought we were doing the right thing. We were blind." Dad nodded, eyes on the ground. "We always thought Emily needed more from us, that you'd be okay with less. We never realized how unfair or hurtful that was." Tears burned my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. "You don't get to decide my dreams. You don't get to say that my life is worth less or that my hopes cost less. I'm a person, not a backup plan." Dad's eyes filled with tears. I had never seen him cry before. "We're sorry," he said softly, voice breaking. "Please let us fix this somehow. We can't change the past, but we can start over. We can repay what we took, even if it's step by step." It was a strange moment. Part of me wanted to run away, but another part felt a spark of hope that we could find a path forward, no matter how rocky. I glanced at Mark, who gave me a small nod. "I don't know if I can forgive you right away," I admitted. "This pain runs deep, but if you're willing to change, really change, maybe we can try." Mom broke down in tears, sobbing into a tissue. Dad pressed his lips together, looking like he was fighting the urge to cry too. "We'll do whatever it takes," he said. "We want you in our lives, Sarah. We don't want to lose you. We know we've been terrible. Please, believe that we love you." I felt myself soften a little. "Words alone won't fix this," I said calmly. "But if you show me, if you truly make an effort, I'll keep my heart open." Emily eventually called me as well, saying she heard from our parents that I found out about the inheritance. She said she had no idea any of that money was originally mine. She insisted our parents never told her. At first, I didn't believe her, but after a long conversation, I realized she might be telling the truth. She grew up spoiled, but she never questioned where the money came from. In her eyes, she was just receiving the love and attention she was used to. Our parents started depositing small amounts into my bank account each month, trying to repay me over time. It didn't take away the hurt, but it showed effort. They also stopped talking about how Emily deserves the best. Instead, they asked me how I was doing, what my future plans were, what kind of celebration Mark and I might like sometime, even if it's not a big wedding. Slowly, step by tiny step, we began to mend those broken bridges. I wouldn't say it was easy. I still felt waves of anger, sadness, and bitterness. I still woke up some mornings wishing none of this had ever happened. But in the end, it was better than letting the anger consume me completely. As for my relationship with Emily, we're still finding our balance. Sometimes I'm jealous because she grew up with so much support. Sometimes she's guilty because I didn't. But we're trying to see each other as sisters, not just the favorite and the other. Looking back, I realized the day of my wedding was the worst day of my life, but it also led me to discover the truth about my family. The hidden inheritance, the secret favoritism that wasn't just emotional but also financial. That day was a painful turning point that shook me awake. And that's the crazy part. Sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. I felt betrayed. I felt shattered. But out of that brokenness, I found my voice. I confronted my parents. I demanded they see me as more than just the shadow of their perfect Emily. Do I wish it happened in a calmer way? Sure. But maybe I needed that dramatic moment to break free from all the silent hurt. If that day had stayed peaceful, I would have gone on thinking I should just accept everything forever. I might never have learned about the inheritance or my parents' real view of me. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. If you made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe, like this video. Tell me in the comments from which city you're watching.